What precisely is JitterBit? An integration platform called JitterBit Harmony is made available online. The essential word here is platform, as the JitterBit platform excels in the term of capabilities and adaptability. And in today's session, we'll learn all about JitterBit. But before we move on to the session, make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel and enabling that bell icon so that you will never miss any updates from Intellipaat. So without any more wait, let's move to today's agenda. First, we'll see the introduction to JitterBit, after which we will go through the JitterBit architecture. And then comes the Cloud Studio or the Design Studio. And it's after that where we will see some of the hands-on modules. Then we will move on to see the JitterBit Studio overview. After that comes the operation types. We will go through the JitterBit formula builder and scripting after that. After which we will see the script functions, and finally we will cover the formula builder.
So I have prepared some sort of slides just to go over the content of and give a small idea about JitterBit and all. So it's an JitterBit Harmony platform, just like any other IPaaS tools, which is competing in the market. So it offers both cloud and design, basically. I mean, desktop application is also there for this one. So it's like a data migration tool. We can use it for syncing data between two different applications or more than two as well. So depends on your, I mean, I would say use, right? So what JitterBit can do basically is like it can deal with your data. I mean, we can consider it's an small ETL tool, not heavily designed for ETL, but it's an completely IPaaS tool. But it can also deal with chunks of ETL, I would say, where it could be passing the data to different applications. I mean, so it is not meant to be handle very large data, I would say. Just like any other tool, let's say example of Informatica. So it was basically designed to handle very heavy data. It was a pure ETL tool, but I would say JitterBit can also do that, but nobody is going to choose JitterBit for complete ETL process, right? But I would say the small integration, mid-scale integration can be used by JitterBit. They can use JitterBit for that purpose, right? So with this JitterBit, we can have API customizations as well. So you might have seen throughout your training the API manager section, where you can have your own API created and exposed to third-party systems, right? And I mean, I have heavily worked with the EDI platform as well for JitterBit. So they are, I mean, truly, I would say JitterBit is one of the easiest tool when we deal with EDI platforms. So this is a basic introduction of JitterBit. I would move to the next slide. So mostly many of us would be considering why only JitterBit, not any other platform or any. So one thing I would be honestly saying is the cost efficiency. That is the first thing. Even if we come to this point that I'm currently highlighting, so it's a cost-effective tool, I would say. Obviously, there is a cloud-based integration available. We can consider this tool as a great middleware. It delivers powerful, flexible, easy-to-use data application integration software, where we can have n number of applications connected to this tool. JitterBit has recently claimed that they have, I mean, successfully connected to 1,000+ endpoints. So you can imagine, I mean, with the different approaches like database, web services, or let's say, I mean, drivers, different data service and all. So they have claimed they have connected to 1,000+ endpoints till date. So I would say no coding approach or less coding approach in these terms simplifies configuration and management of on-premise and cloud integration project. So I'll come to this part later, on-premise and cloud integration projects, basically how they are differ from each other. So it's an graphical representation where we can easily have transportation of data with the help of transformation and its data type. All right. So it includes web services, JSON files, XML files, ODBC, JDBC database, EDI files, flat and hierarchical file structure, basically. So why I say flat and hierarchical is like, so simply in CSV as well, you might have seen hierarchical file structures as well while dealing with other endpoints. So including ETL, extract, transform, load. It's an altogether, as I told you in previous slide, IPaaS. So it's a part of SaaS, software as a service, basically, and service oriented architecture, right? It's available for Linux, Windows. In terms of server base, it is available for Linux and Windows. But if we compare with Studio part, it is available for Windows as well as Mac, and is offered through Amazon EC2. I mean, why they have mentioned it as an Amazon EC2 is like, I mean, JitterBit's all cloud services are hosted on Amazon Cloud only. I'll jump to the next session where this is very important slide as we are revolving around these topics only. What is Cloud Studio, Design Studio, API Manager, App Builder, what is Marketplace, Management Console, Citizen Integrator, and Data Loader. So first two things are related to Studio only. Either it would be Design Studio. Design Studio means where the studio is installed on your local machine and you can operate from that machine only. Cloud Studio is something browser-based cloud application where you can log in and have your integration ready for the platform. API Manager is something which takes care of your API management and all. So App Builder is again a very powerful feature here. So if you know the particular endpoint and you want to have your own connector, so basically you can deal that connector with your App Builder. Marketplace is where you would see tons of recipes and templates, right? Previously, and if you want to have your own recipe for your platform as well, that is also possible, but it is just an existing recipe and templates are placed here in Marketplace. Management console is something which takes care of your projects, activities, logging, API manage, small chunk of API management, I mean project management and all. So that is altogether management console. So Citizen Integrator is something where you it is similar to Marketplace, but here if you have developed your own recipe, you can upload it to Citizen Integrator. Basically, we will come to that later. And Data Loader is something which is purely designed for Salesforce, right? So either of the endpoint, we should have a Salesforce at place, because JitterBit is a Salesforce partner. So they have a separate tool called Data Loader for Salesforce. So it could connect to database to Salesforce, Salesforce to database. I mean, either way, local file, SFTP, all to Salesforce or Salesforce to all the endpoints. So the purpose of this tool was to load data into Salesforce only or extract data from Salesforce. So when you have your JitterBit licensing, so you would get a data loader free with that, basically. I mean, obviously the functionality is little less in terms of actual what JitterBit offers. Here there are limited functions and all, but we will see how does it go. All right. So they haven't yet included, I mean, they have a feature in place, but that is again in under testing. I'm not sure when they are gonna release it, but I would say very soon we would be seeing that feature as well in JitterBit. But as a backup, in terms of cloud backup, I think we can have a cloud backup in terms of deploying our project. But at this time, I would say no two persons can work on the same code. All right, I'll jump to the next slide. So coming back to the JitterBit architecture, basically it is also an client server architecture. If you take any typical example where you want to see the client server architecture, right? There is a client and there is a server. So in between n number of things would be there, like firewall and all. So I mean, crossing that firewall and directly connecting to server, it's just like a typical JitterBit client server architecture. It would be having design studio and server. I would say as of now, let's consider term as a servers only. But going forward, we would be calling them as an agent, right? So JitterBit calls their server as an agent, and studio, I mean, client as in studio, right? So simply, if you consider the architecture components that we have currently is like studio, agent, environment, agent groups, and JitterBit management console. These are the main five things that we would be dealing with here and there. So you would be more clear on the next slide about these components basically. So if I come to component, so let's say studio you would be dealing with is in client and agent would be in your server. And when it comes to environment, basically it is like any typical environment, right? Dev, QA, UAT, and prod. So I mean, not JitterBit is going to provide these all, but when it comes to JitterBit environment or JitterBit agent group, I'll come to agent group later. When it comes to environment, maybe admin of your JitterBit account can take care of that. Let's say developer would be taking care of dev and QA environment. I mean, most of the jump in happens between dev and QA as and then U18, then prod. So simply, I would say it is completely customizable. I mean, how many environment you have been subscribed to, right? With the let's say JitterBit has a licensing process like standard, enterprise, and professional. So let's say your organization has purchased a standard one. So with standard one, they offer, I mean, around, I'm not exactly remember the number, but let's consider 10 environments they have offered you, right? So you can create up to 10 environments and bind your agent group together to that environment. And when you are binding agent group, that means you are binding your agent to that group. And as of now, you just consider the agent group would be a collection of agents. Not necessary that we would be having two or more. It could be one as well as per your loading and all, right? So it's just 10 we collect together and add to environment. That's all. We would see load balancing as well. How in terms of load balancing, how JitterBit takes care of that things here. Moving to the next slide. So I just wanted to tell you how in JitterBit perspective, how this client server things would be dealing with. So ignore just this mobility part. As of now, there is no provision. But let's consider a typical scenario where you would be dealing with your design studio. Over the internet, I would be connecting to JitterBit servers. So this server is nothing but your agent, where you would be having n number of firewalls with your company firewall, maybe let's say your network firewall. So again, you might have whitelisted your IP addresses and all, and so you are trying to connect to their environment basically. So in that process, you may be having n number of services where let's consider your client application wants to connects to your server. So in that process, your environment in this case would be your dev environment, right? So in that dev environment, let's say you might have okay, I would come to here just to explain you more about the combinations that we can have with our studio part, right? Let's say consider design studio, right? So with design studio, you can have your own private agent. So in this case, it would be on premise, right? So this is one type of client server application, right? So you won't be dealing with JitterBit cloud agents, but you would be setting up your own private agent. So here it provides you the setup of your server. Here it will provide you server setup where you can have your own dedicated machine installed on where you can install your own agent, and you can have your own client server communication, right? That is one thing. So next thing would be design studio and cloud agents. So this is an again on JitterBit cloud, I would say. So in this scenario, you won't have to set up your own. JB will be owned it, right? JitterBit will be owned it. These cloud agents basically, and you don't have to worry about its downtime and all, right? So they will take care of. But in this private agent, you need to have somebody who would be checking daily whether your agent is up all the time or not, or if it had been down, so what was the downtime, what was the impact, that you have to take care in this scenario. So the next thing would be, let's say, cloud studio and private agent. So again, the same scenario, but everything, I mean, your studio would be on browser based, that is comes under cloud, and you would be having your private agent here, right? So here also you require setup of your server in private agent. So next thing would be, let's say, cloud studio and cloud agents. So these four combinations are possible with your client server architecture basically. I mean, what I have seen is basically when people dealing with very sensitive data, let's say banking data, or let's say an order integration, right, where they deal with very important phase of their data. So they choose to, I mean, they generally go with private agents because they want to have all the logging in their own systems, not on private, not on cloud agents, right? Though it is secure, but again, it's an compliance issue, right? People are very sensitive about data, but that is the reason they just go when I would say when company dealing with EDI platform or any banking sector data, they normally go with private agents. And if you have very sensitive data, just go with private agents. Otherwise, it is always good to have a cloud agents, as JB is owned it and they are taking care of. They are making sure that it is up all the time, right? I have very closely seen both of the studio. I prefer design studio as it is more stable studio in terms of communication and all. But if somebody has a requirement to choose only cloud studio, then I would recommend Cloud Studio as well. Yeah, so these are the 4 combinations in terms of client server architecture. But here mainly comes one more part when it comes to cloud agent, right? So there are 2 types of cloud agent, or I would say cloud agent groups that JitterBit offers basically. First is sandbox, second is production. So mainly they have categorized their cloud agents in agent groups in 2 sections, where sandbox and production. I mean, under this as well, in sandbox, I think they have 7 or 8 agents, and similarly, it applies for production as well. I think 8 to 10 agents. So load balancing and all, they takes care of it, right? So for sandbox, I mean, when we go with cloud approach, we can utilize this sandbox for till UAT, right? Dev to UAT, and this would be purely for prod we can utilize. All right. So when I say 7 or 8 agents or 8 or 10 agents, it means every server would be having individual IP address. They have bind together in sandbox agent cloud agent group and production cloud agent group, right? So and they are purely called as an for development to UAT, what they recommend usually, but somebody has to use production for UAT as well as an production they can use, but it would be again a mix up, right? So as a standard criteria, we should have a production dedicated for our production code only. So that is all about this cloud client server architecture basically. So in terms of JitterBit features, if we talk about, so JitterBit have their own standard connectors. Let's say take an example of Salesforce and NetSuite. So these connectors are very stable in terms of not only these two, but there are many like NetSuite and Salesforce. But the reason being, I have very closely worked with these two connectors. I'm giving an example. So they have a standard piece of connectors available, and I would say debugging is quite easy with JitterBit, as we can have our own debugging logs and all enabled for particular things there. So here a component level of deployment is also possible. Let's say what I mean to say is that let's say you have created one source, right? Source with database, you made a database connection, but you are not pulling anything from database, right? For that you require separate operation to be created. I would explain this operation term later, but as of now you consider operation as a single unit where you would be having a chunks of component there, right? Component would be transformation, component would be source, or component would be target, or simply anything. So let's say you create one component where you created source as in database, you made a connection to database, and you simply want to deploy that process only, not the entire process. So in that matter, you have a provision to deploy individual component as well. So coming to custom API, it's an again a API manager feature, which is very powerful feature in terms of designing your own APIs and exposing it to onto JitterBit Cloud. Here they have one more feature called on-premise and cloud agent group that I recently explained you, right? Data import feature. So this is again a very important feature. Let's say you are working on similar use cases, right? Let's say you deal with order integration. Now you have to deal with let's say codes. So in that scenario, you might need previous code, some sort of previous code as well, which is resides on separate project, and you want to import it to new project. So that feature is also available with JitterBit. And data migration is quite easy. I mean, code migration, I would say, not the data. Code migration is quite easy here. I mean, you can easily migrate a single component to other project or entire project to other environment. That is also possible here. And you can have a cloud backup, as I told you, right? Where you can deploy individual project, and I mean, you can maintain your own version in the cloud itself, but version controlling as an indirect, not the direct, as I told you earlier, right? I'll show you that feature as well later. So the next feature is cache feature. JitterBit also provides a cache feature, where we can, let's say somebody has to, um, so you guys might be having dealt with token systems, right? So you would be having generated tokens for your system, where token gets expired every 1 hour or every 1 minute, right? I mean, if it is a sensitive systems, let's consider Amazon, AWS. So we would have to generate signature, I guess every 60 seconds, right? If I'm not wrong. So in that scenario, uh, you would be maintaining a cache feature where you would be placing your signature and reading it to other flows. Or let's say, so this cache feature is available for 30 days. I mean, you can store any data to cache up to 30 days. And the maximum data that you can store in cache is like up to 5 MB in single cache. Okay, when I say data import feature, basically there are two things here. Not, I mean, you ignore data part first of all. So I would say a component import from other project is also easy. And when I say data import feature, it means I mean, importing data from source and loading it into transformation. That is another feature. Regarding the JitterBit references that we have multiple references here, I would say. This is an basic success central, where you would find JitterBit development related things, maybe some sort of information about each and every individual component and functions and everything, right? So that's an first reference. So going to the second, this is an JitterBit community, where you can have multiple things to be done. I mean, let's say if you are dealing on critical project, so you are not clear about a particular component, so you can raise your case with JitterBit, where they answer to your queries that they have. I mean, here already there are multiple things available. I mean, if particular customer has query, so they have reached, before even they reaching out to JitterBit, they try to check it here. I mean, what are the different topics and what was the query and what was the solution, right? So if you do not find anything here, maybe you can log in from this point and you can raise the support case with JitterBit. Also, the main advantage of this community is like you can provide, let's say if you have any idea that you want to share with JitterBit and that feature you want to be added to JitterBit, you can also raise that thing from this platform. Once you log in, that feature you can also see. Going back to the third reference, this is an again a very important portal where you would be having I mean, let's say if you wanna design your own connector, so JitterBit has provided SDKs for that. I mean, if somebody is from Java background, who knows Java better, they can have their own connectors designed. I mean, they have explained the process. JitterBit has their own SDKs. You can import it to your Eclipse and you can start development from that point. So you can also have a custom plugin designing or development for your private agents. I mean, you are not allowed to push that plugins to cloud agents, but you can have your own plugins. Let's say JitterBit did not have a provision for, I mean, for example, I'm telling you, let's say for authentication, and you also got to know that there is no way you can connect to particular endpoint other than SDKs, right? I mean, that could be a Java SDKs or jar files, and the only provision that they are providing through jar files. So in that scenario, you can download JitterBit plugin SDK and platform SDKs together. You can bundle it together, design your own code for plugin and host it on a private agents. So that is also possible. So I mean, how to design recipes as well, they have mentioned here. So this portal is again very important. Maybe if you want to be a core developer for JitterBit platform. So this is again, you might be aware of JitterBit University, as it provides all training parts and all. So the next link would be,
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides Salesforce online training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
for trust.jitterbit.com, where uh, it will show you, I mean, if from JitterBit perspective, all things are up or not. If anything is down, it will show either a cross mark here or not working or something, right? So if you are dealing with JitterBit's Cloud Studio, in that no, not Cloud Studio, Cloud Agents, in that scenario, maybe you can check the status of each and every component here. Maybe NAEast or EMEA West or APAC. So what are those basically? I'll just simply explain you. So JitterBit has mainly categorized their logging in 3 areas. So I would say NAEast is then completely North America. EMEA is again an Asia specific terms. I mean regions they have categorized, and APAC is third thing, where they have, I mean, again, I'm not sure which reason it is for, but they have 3 different logins they have maintained from their end. So usually, I mean, if it is an India account, they add it to EMEA. So that's how they deal with it, region wise. So just to give you proper support on each terms. Okay, logging. I mean, what I have seen past 1 year log as well on the cloud. So that is not an issue. Like, I mean, seeing the logs, there is, I mean, logging wise, there is no difference. I mean, the extra advantage we would get on in terms of private agent is like, you can log, I mean, let's say files onto your private agents, and you can easily go to your private agent and see those files. I mean, in terms of logging, how the things are working or not. I mean, temporary storage always is there, right? All right. So we have agents, we have agent group, we have environment, and we have org. But if we compare it with hierarchy, we should have org first, right? And the later comes into picture is like environment. Third thing is agent group, fourth thing is agent, right? So on very top, it is organization which comes, then later environments, then agent groups, and then agent, right? So one agent can be a part of multiple agent group as well, or I would say agents, right? But in a hierarchy, this is the hierarchy. So one agent could be a part of multiple agent groups. One agent group could be a part of multiple environments, but organization wise, it is one organization only, right? So simple. That is a small thing that we had. So everyone must be having this JitterBit learning. When we logged in, so you might see something called this screen, right? Where you would be seeing Cloud Studio, API Manager, Marketplace, and Management Console. These are the four different utilities where you can have you can jump to different direction of creating or developing a projects, managing your APIs. You can view your marketplace, what are the things available there, and management console where you will actually monitor, organize the things. Managing users and administration part and all, everything placed in this management console. So talking about this thing, so one that you see as a JitterBit learning sandbox, which is your org, and this would be your org ID in the bracket 545, right? The one you see in the drop down is a data loader organization. You remember, as I told you, when you get your JitterBit org ID, by default you get data loader ID as well. If I click on this one, so you see this data loader right here, and you will see very minimal options are available here with data loader. So if I jump back to our original org, so you would be seeing different options here for this org basically. As I can see, this JitterBit Harmony as an enterprise account, but just for learning purpose, I can see they have been given access to, right? So talking about each and every tab, I'll jump to Cloud Studio first, where it has been directed to the project screen, where you can create your own project. If you have existing project, you can create import existing project. You can sort the available list by environment details basically, and you can, from this same screen, you can jump to connector builder screen, where you can have your own connector build basically. So I'll just start with new project here as a sample project. Simply test. You can choose your org, which one you want. Currently, they have allotted you two orgs. I mean, by default, they might have created it, or some of you might have already created it as an dev and test environment. So I'll choose dev one. I'll give my description. This is test project. Start designing. So here, once you enter in, maybe this is your first time, so they're asking you for the walkthrough. So they will give you different information. So they call this section as a palette, where all your connectors are resides. So the next thing would be build operations, right? So dragging this component, palette components onto your this canvas area, you can build your own operations. So next is creating new workflow. I mean, workflow is something which okay, I'll simply explain new things to you. Dismiss guide. So once you enter in, you would see something like this, where you have new workflow. Workflow means binding multiple operations together just to have a separate flow, right? So let's say if I right click on it, and I see different options like deploy this entire workflow, or when I say configurable deploy, that means let's say in this workflow there are 10 operations, but 9 of them are valid, one is invalid. When I say invalid, means we missed some of the configuration for one of the operation, so we can deploy 9 of them, and one of them had to be corrected before we deploy it, otherwise it won't get deployed, right? So renaming is something, we rename the workflow our, so I'll call it test one workflow simply. And this area is canvas area where you can have your own design of workflows. So the next thing come into mind, how do we start with? So normally in typical scenarios of integration, we either start with scheduler or listener, right? So here we have both the processes, either listener or scheduler. So when I say listener, then again I have to jump back to my API manager to create my own listener, right? We do not have pre-built listener here in this list, so we create API, but we will see that how can we achieve that. So let's so this would be your canvas area, so where you can have your own connector configured. Maybe let's take a simple one where we don't have to mention any. So let's say this one, file share. So file share, for file share I have mentioned some path like /test/1, and my login is ABC, though it's invalid login. I just want to show you the activities that this connector offers. Basically, I saved it, let's say, and so now once we save this, so you see this for file connector we have read and write activity, right? So let's say we are trying to read something, so we simply drag it to our canvas area. We double click it, we configure it here. Let's say get files, we can give a file name as test.csv and do next. So once you do this test.csv, so it will ask for three options here. Do you have any predefined schema which you wanna utilize? So if I want to provide new schema, then I have to load the same file here just to create the schema part. So here you would see all the file types, JSON, XML, XSD, zip, right? And you can choose the file from your local directory and load it here. And once you load it, on the very next screen, you would see that request schema has been populated here, right? So similarly for response, if you have any response structure as well, it would also populate that response structure. So this way we configured each and every individual component, but this is simply a reading file from source, but we haven't transformed that file to anything. So for that matter, either you can simply come to this place, right? And either you can add in here as an new transformation by right clicking it, or if you want to have your own script to be added here just to massage your data, let's say we will take an example of transformation. So here you would see source and target together, but we don't have any files or schema populated here because of we haven't given any schema to source, right? That's the reason it hasn't populated. So we'll see it in a detailed manner later, but I'm just want to give you overview of these components. So this way you can have a different workflows to be created by clicking this plus symbol here. And so this is on project level. Again, if you click on it, you would see the project settings. What are the settings available? Where is what is your environment, what is your agent group. I talked about two different agent group of cloud that offers a production cloud agent group and sandbox cloud agent group. So our dev environment is allocated with our production cloud agent group basically here. So if I close this one, I'll jump here again. So for this particular individual project, you can see all the logs at the screen where it will show the operation name, time started, done, duration, and what is the status of that operation, whether it is failed, successfully run, or the same status. So you can simply export the same project. Again, this is a deploy project, means entire project level deployment. If you remember, I told you the component level deployment is possible and whole project deployment is also possible. So even if I click on this workflow, I can deploy it. Even if I click here, I can deploy entire project. So let's say if I drag this item, I just want to deploy this one, I can deploy it, right? So component level deployment is possible. So you don't have to deploy everything all together, but you can deploy the things in chunk, right? At one go, you can deploy everything, whatever present in this project. Basically, if you have 10 workflows, all 10 will get deployed because of the fact like operations are binded to workflows and workflows are binded to project, right? So everything will go in one shot. Okay, let's take an example. So your code is already in production, right? Let's say, and client has requested you some sort of hot fix, right? So let's say you don't have time for UAT and QA. It's just an hot fix, right? This is one example basically. So you directly pull back your code to UAT, let's say, and you made some changes in UAT, and so you don't want to deploy everything but that single component, right? So that way, I think the deploying single component to UAT first and migrating same single component to production. So this way the things are possible. I mean, even if without touching the existing code, that's the purpose. Yeah, I mean, let's say you made changes to your component, right? You deployed it onto UAT. So let's say I don't want to deploy everything to production, right? Then I have to deploy individual component. So in that matter, you can deploy that individual component or individual operation to production. Even though these are two different things, but these are interrelated. Where if you do any changes in UAT, you make sure you push that changes to production as well, right? So that's
Yes.
where migration comes into picture. Everything on the canvas you can deploy. If it is, I mean, if it is invalid, you cannot deploy it, but it is valid component, we can deploy it. When I say invalid, those components are, let's say you miss out on configuring per particular component, right? So that component you cannot deploy. You see this highlight invalid items, right? So let's say I pulled this up. So it initially shows me in the red only, right? The reason being it hasn't been configured properly. So let's say if I give it test.csv, do next, finished. So now this component got changed into black color, but not the operation, because operation is not yet fully configured. So how do we consider this operation would be fully configured? Is like at least this operation should have source and target, right? So let's say next thing I would take is like here, if I right click, take a script. If I come to script, so this trans would be an indicator where you have to return your code into in this block only. So I'm just trying to log something here. Write to log operation is the function where you can log anything. So if I take a written a test here, right? And this script is valid, it shows. So now if I close this one, so you see this everything is in the black now. So this means this component is valid. So I can directly go and deploy here this component. So you would see this operation 3 has been deployed successful. But if I try to deploy this component, so it says your project cannot be deployed due to the following invalid items. So this highlight invalid items would tell us which are the invalid components in your operation. So by default, it is checked so that you can easily identify your components needs to be fixed first. So let's say if I pulled it read and write activity both. So this way it will complete this process, right? Finished it. So now that RAID has been gone. Now if I try to deploy it, I can simply deploy and it got deployed, right? So though there is no connection between these two, but these components falls under your test one workflow and which are valid. I mean, so linking this operation together would be an easy part. We would see that later, how we can link two operation together, how we can make a operation chain, how we can make shoot email and all. So that part comes later, but I just wanted to show you individual component configuration and deployment is also possible. Okay, so your operation 2 is already there in the cloud, right? And you created this new script and you want to deploy this individual, right? So let's consider even if I deploy this individual component, right? So it has workflow ID and project ID bind together, right? Though even though if I deploy it, it as an individual component. So while deploying it, it may be converting it into some sort of other format. Let's say, as I heard, JitterBit converts everything in the backend as an XML. So it will convert this component into XML. It will take all the dependencies. What is the operation ID, right, in the backend? What is the workflow ID and what is the project ID? So that way it will deploy this component to this workflow only, not to any other workflow. So it won't create copy, it will always overwrite. So let's say if I'm using this component in some other projects as well, right? Okay, so when I pull something from other project, basically it will create a copy. So when I import it, import something from other project to this project, it will create a copy and it will assign a new GUID to it. Common template usage is available. Let's say I have three projects, project 1, 2, 3, right? So project 1 and 2 are individual entities, but they are taking reference from project 3. Okay, so project 1 and 2 taking reference from project 3, right? So let's say I have called project 3 from project 1 and took out my actual values and keep it in a project 1. So again, I'm calling project 2, project 3 from project 2 again, and take out the value and stored in project 2. So that way component reusability you can achieve. So you configured your database, MySQL, your server name is test.com, DB is test123, and login. Login, let's say ABC, and password would be also something. So if I do, okay, I think there is no way to save unless we. So let's say this you have configured this database and you created one extraction operation, right? Read operation from database table, right? So you what I meant to say is you can utilize this same operation without importing it to other project as well. I mean, same copy can be distributed to different projects, or not distributed to, but can be used by different projects. Workflow across the projects. Okay, so I think that is not possible here using particular workflow across the project, because uh, when I say JitterBit Cloud Studio, they are in a growing stage. They have not come to the level where Bhumi is, right? So they have more focused on design studio in earlier stage. Now they are coming into picture because market is flowing to cloud. So from last 3.5 years they have started investing money onto this cloud studio, and they have hired their major team just to work on this cloud studio, but they have not reached to the point where they have some sort of advanced techniques and all. So I would say no. So referencing that, so in design studio, what happens, this workflow concept is practically not possible. I mean, they have something different as in folder level configuration in design studio, not the workflow. Reusing is that way here, because workflow is only applies for cloud studio, not the design studio. So these are different. So here you see the workflow, and the next thing would be the component. I mean, what are the different components available here? So we have a scheduler, we have email configurations. I mean, though we haven't configured it, that's the reason it is not showing. So we have configured one operation. It shows one operation, one script, one endpoint, which is of file share type, which has two read and one write. And we had 3 operations here. One was discarded. So it shows in red because we haven't configured it properly, right? So if I come to transformation, so transformation also got deleted with that because I deleted operation. So all the dependent component of that particular operation will get deleted. So we will come to this each and every part. Maybe let's say in next session, we will see 1 or 2 project created in Cloud Studio as well. But our main focus would be on Design Studio. Schema would be visible only on a transformation level.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides Salesforce online training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
It would be, you would see it in under files only. Let's say you create one schema here. You can see this schema populated. I mean, the name would be here, but you cannot see schema together by just clicking on it, this individual component. If you have to see this schema, you can check the dependency of that component, and you can jump to that transformation and check the schema there. On transformation level, you can do that changes. Let's say you have a transformation created already here. I would say name comma id. Name would be bit2 comma id is 121. Let's save it as in test.csv. All right, so we have stored it on the desktop. I'll just pull up this file, save changes. So you see, okay, you see this flat schema has been created here. Either I can define a separate schema here, or I can just mirror it on the target side as well. So if I click on mirror, so it would create the not the copy, but it will just mirror the same schema to target side as well. So you see this automate exact feature, it will automap everything. So you see these 2 options as well here, import and export. Let's say I do preview of it. Next, upload new file to test. And if I load the same test again, so you see the first is name and ID, right? Here you see 1 of 2. If I click on next, v2 and 1 to 1. So this transformation loading is also possible. I mean the data. So you can see on source v2 and 1 to 1. You can see the same component on target side as well, name and ID. So this way it is possible. Okay, let's jump back from studio part. So now you see this individual component here. the project created. You can change to different view as well. Now it has been deployed by this user, and you can come to edit mode, or if you wanna write some description for it, or if you wanna do project setting, logs, project variables and all. So this project variables and all we will see when we jump back to Design Studio as well, because this same thing. So if you wanna export this project, so it will show what are the things you wanna export, include credentials, email notification, project variable values, and schedulers. I'll just export everything. So it will pull out everything in JSON format. So if I show you the same JSON, so I mean there are plenty of things you might be wondering to see, but you can go through with each and every component. What are the schema types defined there, and different thing. But when we export something from Design Studio, it will create a file with .jpg extension. For Cloud Studio, it is .json. For design, it is .jpg extension. So we normally call it JitterPack. So the short form of JitterBit package .jpg. All right. So coming back to the file menus, we have different menus available here. We will jump to API manager now. So let's say if I open API manager, so it says create, publish, manage your own APIs. Here if I see, I have a manager portal, API logs, analytics, security profiles that we can create. We will try to create one new API. Let's say proxy API we will see later, but let's say we created new API and I have given name it as an my first API, right? So environment would be dev. Let's say version I have put it as an 1.0. Description is fine. So for my default time of this API is 30 seconds, but let's say if I take it to 100 seconds, and what are the security terms that you can enable is like enable CORS. Some of the things are enabled on CORS as well. You might be aware, enable verbose logging and all. So I'm not aware of this fully, but I know these two options. And so what is this enable debug mode until is basically, let's say I have enabled a debug mode of this particular operation. Let's say it takes individual date for next, it takes today's date as a default for next 1 hour, because when you enable debug logging, it just create a tons of files on your local machine as well. I mean agent machine as well. So that's the reason if it is in Cloud Studio, JitterBit takes by default as in 1 hour only. So let's say if you can choose for next 2 days, and if I do next, so you need to assign at least one operation to this process to continue. So next, my next wizard says, now you have created your API. Now you need to assign some sort of operation to it, because these APIs are operation binded, right? So either you can create your service type as an custom API, which is binded to your operation and all, or you can create your own OData service, right? So let's say for now we will choose custom API. If I click on, so we have only one project as a test, it will show you that project is a deployed project, right? So now next operation is, there are two operations present in that API. So let's say we will choose operation 3 as it has a script operation, right? So the next method would be, I'm not sure which method to choose. I can choose all. So it will accept all the methods. So my response type would be, do you want to respond anything to API? So let's say final target means whatever this operation has a final target, it will reply to that only. So let's say I made it as a system variable. I'll come to this point. System variables are nothing but the JitterBit's individual variable or predefined variable, I would say. And if I choose no response, it won't send response to our API, right? So let's say assign this operation to, so it will show the summary. Let's say we have assigned this operation to this project and all. So let's click new. So the third would be the assign user roles. Currently we have only one role here present. As I'm not, I mean this user is itself is not an admin, so we cannot see multiple roles here defined. So I would be choosing the profile. So default profile is created as an 111397 dev. But if you want, let's say if you want to create new profile, you can create from here as well, right? So if I click on new profile, you can assign profile details and choose the environment of this profile, which environment has to be this profile should have access to, and what is the type of authentication here. So let's say in JitterBit there are 4 types of auth that you can apply to this profile. Let's say basic or 2.0 API key. So if I click on API key, let's say this is my API dash key, right? And this would be the value it would generate. So while hitting this API from Postman, you need to have this value configured. I mean key and value configured. You need to copy this API key because it is just a visible only one time, right? Let's say you configured everything here and then save, and same profile will be visible at this level, right? So I'll create it, assign the profile to it. This is optional part, though you don't have to create it all the time if you are testing. Okay, but let's say you are exposing your API to some external system, that time you can avail this service. So if I click on next, you'll see everything on this page. What are the project and operation available? I mean, bind to this API profile. What is the role and what security we have assigned it to. So save and publish will save it and deploy it to cloud, as well as publish it to your JitterBit server and make it live, right? Your API is live now. So how to trigger this API is basically copy this URL and maybe come to Postman and trigger it, right? So that way, I think it is possible to trigger this particular API, and the operation binded to it will serve you the rest of the purpose. So this way we can create your own API, modify your API. If you look at the URL carefully for API, let's say you want to consume this API. I will take an operation here. So here in header part, you need to pass that key and value pair. I mean, JitterBit follows all the security standards. Basically, there is no compromise in that. When it goes to process, it is non-mutable, I would say. So what we do usually is like we create project variables for it, project variables, and for password we hide the values, right? Basically, so that way the masking is done. But you want to see that value. Let's say somebody has created. I'll show you it through example only. Let's say edit. I want to edit this one. So let's say I created one project variable. called API key, right? So I have given a value, it as in this one only, right? Consider it as an API key. So now if you see this default value here, but once you hide this value and let's say somebody jumps to this project again and open this. So if somebody wants to unhide it, that value gets nullified. Yeah, this way I think, I mean, if it is a sensitive information or sensitive credential part, you can always hide it. If you try, if somebody tries to unhide it, it will get discarded from here. All right. Jump back to API manager again. So this is the API creation part. We will go in depth again, surely, to this API and all, but we will see different components here as this is a simple overview. So if you come to this project manager, so you would see, and on the left hand side, you would see the Swagger, right? You guys might be aware of Swagger, right? So you can write your own RAML here and you can generate your own APIs through this process, and you can save and publish as well. So Swagger documentation is available here on this link. Once you write your own RAML, it will auto generate the methods and resources together, and you can save and publish your own API. And once you are done with this process, I think you can view here all the components available. Yeah. So this is the portal manager. And if I jump back to portal, the same thing again, whatever the API that we created. And I mean, what are the different API? This one is default API. If let's say somebody has created multiple, it will show in the as a list of APIs here. API logs. Again, this is a very interesting thing where you would see how many times in a day or how many times in an hour your API has been triggered particularly. So it shows some sort of graphs here. As of now, we don't have any trigger to our APIs, so it won't show. Let's say we try to trigger this one, though we get unauthorized one. Just trying to fetch the logs. So you see this log has been created as in status 401. So the request ID, and it will show all the details. I mean, how this got triggered and everything, right? This way it is possible to see logs as well, API logs. So if I come to analytics, so you would see hits per day. This is again a graphical representation of your API. Status code per day, and so that is all. When you come to security profile, you would see it here. Yeah, health of API analytics itself would show, I mean, is it overburdened or not? So that thing also you can see it here. I mean, you can limit your API always, as we have seen right there. This is about API manager. Let's come to marketplace now. So you see in the marketplace, they have a different sort of categorize their all the components. Let's say though it would be a recipe or it would be a template. There is a slight difference between recipe and template. You can go by individual as well. Let's say if I want Salesforce either target or source, I have 180 recipes or template, I would say, regarding Salesforce. So they have a huge number of individual components here, you would see. Similarly, let's say categorize, how they have categorized it. CRM, ERP, marketing, e-commerce project as well. Let's say we try to open some ERP project. If I click on individual component, okay, so it will ask you where do you want to import it. to your project. So let's say I given a Dave, so it will take the same name, creating your own project. So they have created one separate project here. If I open it, so you would see they have operations created and linked together for this process. So the only thing you can do here is like configure your items. So they have created Salesforce project variables individually for configuring this operation. If I come to component and click on project variables, so you would see Salesforce related individual project variables as well. So if I come here, view and edit, you can configure your host here. Once you configure all Salesforce related things, maybe you can have a test connection, security token, password, username, and host. These are the 4 things are mandatory. Once you configure it, maybe you would see, and similarly, you need to have Workday configured, right? Once you configure it, let me see if they have. Oh, okay, they have chosen only standard fields as here. So the schema on the left hand side, get workers, and they have pulled only limited record, worker ID, user ID, email. So worker ID is something, the employee ID for Workday. User ID is something different user ID, email, last name, first name. So similarly, they have tons of recipes available with JitterBit, where you can, if you want to utilize some portion of it, and on top of it, if you want to modify it, maybe you can modify simply. They have very minimal mappings available with these components because every individual business has their own requirement. That's the reason they haven't included any custom fields here. So this way you can import any individual marketplace component onto your project repo. All good with this one, marketplace? I would say yes. Yeah. Okay. Now coming back to API console dashboard, management console. So here you would see what are the different activities happening on your management console. Are there any agent registered already? If we had an agent register, it would have shown the IP address of that agent and status of that agent as in running or stop or pending or something. Are there any number of operations failed? It will show the total count here. So you'd see this design portion as well. How many projects are there in your org? How many environments are there? And these are the studio downloads for Mac as well as Windows, right? And these are the activity logs. How many logs got failed today and yesterday? So we haven't run anything, so it won't show anything, right? So this way. So now if I jump back to project part, so this project and Cloud Studio, two different things here. If I jump to project, so where were we? Okay, we were at project frame. Yeah. So here you would see project ID, individual project ID, project name, and what environments it is bind with, and all everything, right? So either you can import your project from the system and configure or deploy it to cloud. So this is a project management screen where if you click on individual component, you would see all the respective operations. Because I did not deploy this project, I won't be able to see anything here, but the project name itself is there, right? So similar way, if I click on this one, you would see the operation 2 and 3 are there, right? And do we have any schedule related to it? If not, you can create from here itself as well. Do we have any backup of this project? No, we haven't taken any backup. So once you take a backup and create your own version, it gets loaded here on this screen. If I switch on project variables, we do not have any project variables. so it don't show anything, right? Similarly, for this project, we have, I think, 20 plus project variables, but the fact is we haven't deployed that component, so it won't show here. Deploy history, I think we deployed, so I won't say it got deployed, but it got pulled from our marketplace. That's the reason it shows the history, right? When it got pulled and created, date could be. So similarly for every individual project. Correct. I mean, we did not perform any activities today. It's related to logging only. This activity component is related to operation logs only. Yeah, that way it will show like this operation has been run this many times, it will show. So basically, let's say you have a process, let's say you are fetching some sort of data from some sort of ERP systems, right? In that process, we may have, let's say, lakhs of records, right? When you are trying to pull it for the first time. So your operation may run it for, let's say, 8 to 10 hours, right? So let's say this individual components or projects are deployed under day only. Now, if I jump back to Cloud Studio and open this component or project, and let's say I want to migrate it to now test environment, from dev to test. Do you have project history tag name? I think yes. I would copy the same as an test and we'll paste it here. Migrate all variable values if there are any, and I'll just deploy this from here. So now this project got deployed. I'll jump back to the project screen one more time. So now you would see the same project populated in dev as well as in test environment. Similarly, the migration happens and you can control it from here. Let's say you want to disable scheduler for your dev project and enable it for test project. You can do it from here. So that project management can happen from here. And let's say you want to delete this copy, you can delete it from here. Or do you want to delete it from all environments? I don't want to. I just want to delete it from test environment. You can delete directly. So this is all about project thing. So let's come to activities. So this activities will show you all the logs, logging, everything. Let's try to run something. Do we have a, yeah, we have a project. I'll just run this operation. Let's say deploy and or individually run. We have already deployed it, right? So you'd see the status submitted, received, and we will again jump back to that management console of activities. If I refresh it here, so you would see the operation 3 from test project ran, which has a dev environment, and this was the cloud details, agent details. So it got assigned to this cloud JitterBit cloud agent 7-1202. They have a naming convention they follows for every cloud agent, and they have a for this operation success with info. So if I check the info, that is test, right? We logged right to operation log as a test there, right? So when it got submitted, when it got completed activity, so you can see the logging here, and you can filter the logging as well based upon these items. So let's say I just want to individually filter out the logging. So let's say I give an operation name as an whatever the operation available. So this way you can filter the logging as well, or based upon environments. There are these many components where, so let's say you filter based upon the message you have given, right? So you can pass that message here simply. Let's say I just want to filter it based upon test message. So it will show you that because of the fact we have only one log here, but this way we can filter the logging. So if I come here, I can see last 24 hours log, 48 hours or custom logs as well. And if you click on this drop down, I think no saved query. If you have any query saved, let's say you fired some query here and you save that query, you can see the list of queries here. You don't have to do it every level, right? So that way activities can be seen. Let's jump back to other component called environment. So here you would see two different environments, dev and test. Both are, both has got assigned the production cloud agent group only, right? So I think for this trial account, they have enable us a project production cloud agent group only. So that's the reason it could be possible, right? I think we do not have any right to create new environment. Otherwise, we would have seen button somewhere like you can create your own environment as well and assign the agent group to it. So similarly, let's come to agent part. Agent group part. So where you would see individual agent group, where as this is an cloud agent group, you don't have any agents available. Let's say you would let's say you have created your own agent group, and you installed one agent. Under that, you have created your own agents as a private agent. You can see those agents and their respective IP addresses on this screen tab. So that right, I think we do not have here for this account. So these are all about management console. Jumping back to citizen integrator part. So it's just an similar to marketplace, but here what you can achieve is like, let's say I click on Salesforce logo. I would see everything here, right? I'll click on this component, individual component. So it shows the wizardess information now. So extract materials from SAP and upsert them into Salesforce product. So it's just pulling out the material from SAP and pushing it to Salesforce products. So if I click on next thing, it will say which environment do you want to use. I would say dev. Next. Now it asks you for configuring your SAP screen. Let's say I configured it and click on next. It will ask you for Salesforce.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides Salesforce online training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
Similarly, and it will directly run this process from here when you click on run operation. And if I click next, do you want any email messages to be triggered for your process? Let's say you have to pass only true at every places just to get all the data. If there are any data errors, fatal errors, summary logs, or so similar way, you can start your process now, right? So what was this process is like all about? Like getting all external ID field, the individual external ID field. There may be some logic written here. I'm not fully aware what this recipe is all about. But if you don't know anything about this process, I think you can directly contact the JitterBit. They will give you access to this recipe basically. So similarly, you can have multiple logos here. You can utilize for them. The recipes are created for all of them. So if you have your own recipe that you have built, I think you can you have a provision to upload your own recipe as well. I think if it is an admin account, you can upload your own recipe here. if you are created. There is a process to upload that we can achieve here. So this is all about it's an integrator part. And let's come back to downloads section where okay, it hasn't come to download properly, looks like. So now you see here multiple things are available. Are you able to see it properly? Okay. Now if I come here, so we have JitterBit agent of Windows and Linux type, right? And JitterBit agent of Linux. I mean Linux flavors as well, like Debian, RPM, and different. So this is an JitterBit API gateway. I mean somebody has gateway to be added. I think for that also they have these things gateway thing available. On studio part we have Mac and Windows available. And coming back to connectors, let's say if you are trying to use any of the connectors, let's say Microsoft Dynamics AX connector, so you need this connector listeners as well individually installed on your machine. If it is a private agent, if it is an cloud agent, they already have these connectors installed there. These are work as an listeners to their systems basically. You can configure individual component on your agent machine, and you can connect to that system and push everything. You can process the data from that system. So maybe you guys can start downloading. If it is a Windows machine, you can download Windows Studio, and you can configure. The latest version is 10.55. 0.27, which they have released. They have released notes as well. What is their plan about releasing the different studio components or agent components? So if you see it here on this page, Harmony Portal Sandbox Cloud Agent Group, they have recently updated, right? Similarly, they have upcoming plans as well, somewhere in the same page. What is their planning, and what are the components they have released, and what are the enhancement they have done. They are showing it here in this page. So similarly you can go through, and if you want any previous version to be downloaded, I think in that scenario you have to contact to JitterBit. They always show the latest version of Studio or Agent here. If you want any previous version, then you have to contact, I mean you need to raise a support case. They will show you share the link of that particular version. I mean this installer is basically we would not be able to connect to Microsoft Dynamics unless we configure this individual component, because these are already installed on cloud agents but not on the private agents. They have previously what they were doing, they were including all these connectors in this agent only, but the thing was nobody uses these all Microsoft connectors, right, or SAP event listener. If they don't want to use it, it is an unnecessary heavy package that they create on this agent and overburdens. That's the reason. If somebody wants to have it individually, they can download it from here. That is all about this studio thing. I think I have JitterBit Studio installed with me. I'll just overview it. Design studio part. So once you open the studio, you would see something like this, the recent project highlighted, where let's say I have one project already created as in session 2. If I click on new project, here I can create my own new project. I can create own local repository where my all project would reside. And what is the I mean, let's say your this email address training at United Techno is registered with multiple organization, right? Multiple JitterBit organization. So all that organization would be populated here. That's the reason where do you want to create this or project into. So let's say what is the environment that you want to choose here. So similar way, you can hit the button create, and once I'll just open the already created project. All right. So now the visibility wise or the UI wise, the Design Studio and Cloud Studio are totally different. So if you see it here, you see the what environment it is and what agent group it is bind with, right? And this is project name. We have menu here where you can see new project, open existing project, or if you wanna create new operation type, this is again an connector list and all. So if you wanna switch the environment, let's say you can the same project you wanna switch to a test environment, that you can do from there. You can close current project, import JitterPack. So you remember I told you about the .jpk extension, right? So you can only import JitterPacks in this Design Studio, whatever the exported version of it, the same JitterPack you can import. Now you can export the JitterPack. Migrate project is similar to the cloud that we have seen. Now the same feature like import project data. What does that mean? It means you can do you remember creating a copy of project items that we talked about, right? So we can achieve that through this import project data component. So let's say you have a project locally opened and somebody has modified that project already, and you want to take and deploy it from his end, right? You want to restore that same project from cloud, you can choose this operation. So it will pull out the latest copy from cloud itself. Let's say you want to download the project, it will show you the all the list of available projects on the cloud. From that you can download the individual component from it, right? Download backup. Let's say you have backups available for individual projects. Let's say version 3, version 4, you can download each and every component from here. That is the reason JitterBit, while logging into Studio, it will take the login. So this login will fetch this environment details and all locally. Yeah. And while creating new project itself, it will ask which environment do you want to create this project to. So let's say if I click on this project and if I jump to this directory locally, and this is my session 2 project, if I come to this project, so you see this environment dash net 247. So this got created with my environment name, and if I click here, all the project related stuff comes under that only. Let's consider if I move this project to test environment or migrate it to test environment, click next, finish, right? All right. So that is all about the environment specification. These are the reset items that either might have opened or available. So if we jump to preferences, these are like the studio. We can configure how you wanna see your studio and all that activity you can perform from here. If I come to view and activities performed, you can see are there any error log. These are, I mean, these are options are also available on component level or operation level as well, but they have also given on it on menu level as well, right? So let's say script pad and project data elements, project validation. These are like the different components. When we move ahead, we will see that everything. This is about all about logging and log out simply. This is the mode whether you want multi-tab mode, tabs mode, we will see this one as well. So this is menu, and this is again a shortcut of every individual, like creating operation from here, creating a transformation from here, source, target, or do you want to create any web services. So these are the shortcuts of palette. So you see this cloud symbol. So cloud is nothing but you can directly log into your cloud console with by clicking there, cloud studio or a cloud management console. So you see this arrow, this is a deploy and global deploy of whether you want to deploy all new modified items or everything or individual component that you can choose from here. So this deploy and that cloud studio deploy is quite different. So this way, I think, and for every individual component as well, you have deploy here. So operation type, whether it is transformation type or source type. So if you come to this place where you will see your operation types, what are the different operation types? As you might be aware, this JitterBit is an modular structure, right? A modular structure type of operations that we can perform here. Let's say if I have a operation of type transformation, so it will show you three components: source, target, and transformation. So let's say if I choose it here as an my operation activity type would be of script type, so it will show you the single operation, right? So this way on your canvas you would see single operation at a time. Unless they are bind together, you would only see one operation at a time. This canvas by default setting is this way. Let's say this is of operation type. I choose it as an archive type. So you would see only source and target are there. No transformation been added to this archive. But it doesn't mean that you cannot add any other component. You have a flexibility to add script or condition here, but you cannot add transformation to this type. So this way, I think each and every operation type has their own significance. And if let's say if you are not using any of the connector, so in 99% cases you would use these three types only: transformation, script, and archive. So these are like connector, very specific to connectors or web services. So we won't be using this as much as if you don't have to use connectors. So basically here there is no such concept like workflow in the design studio, right? Yeah. So if you have to tie this operation to any other individual project, then you can call this operation from that project only. That is possible here. Let's say, and so this way, like either you can create your own transformation and all. So again, this part I think we can cover it later, like coming to hands-on part. But are we missing anything from our syllabus? I'll just check it quickly. So this way they manages. I mean, the studio code has been written everything in the Java, but so while project filing and everything, they have done it in XML. So we will see each and every operation type. I mean, majorly first three, because those will be the ones we will going to use for long run. And this web service call is specifically for SOAP API configuration. So we will also see that one. The rest of the things are related to connectors. I mean, if we plan to take any of the connectors, we will go to that as well. All right, first I'll take it as an script type operation. I'll call it. So even if we rename our operation, now we just have given skeleton of operation type, right? Now we need to have a script created separately. So either you can right click on this portion and double click on this portion and create new JitterBit script, or second way would be like configuring script from this place. I mean, when you double click on it, you would see two types of scripts here. One is JitterBit script, second one is JavaScript. So JavaScript is also, JitterBit has provided provision for that, but not up to that extent where we can utilize like JavaScript on a bigger level. So they have a basic functionality there. I would still say they are growing in this area as well. We will see how we can create new script here. I'll name it as an sample script. All right, so once you open the script, you might be seeing this functions area, project items area, data elements, plugins, and test. So we will go one by one on each area. So you would be seeing this mode, either developer mode or business analyst mode. So there is a slight difference between these two modes. So once you choose developer mode, I think we will see, how this reacts the different mode. So let's understand more about this scripting part. So I have seen this JitterBit scripting is very powerful in terms of handling payload or massaging data. As we have a different kind of functions available here, conversion functions, cryptography, cache, database functions, date and time, dictionary, debugging. So there are n number of functions where we can utilize these functions and serve our purpose. So these trans tags are nothing but we have to write our script in between these tags only. Even if we write something out of it, it won't throw any errors, but that is something which is not readable by JitterBit script basically. All right, so we will start with simple script and we will understand how this script works basically. So let's say I am going to define my local variable. So there are three types of variables here. Local variable, second is global variable, and third one is project variables. So you can define your variables as of three types here. So local would be limited to your scripting or current instance where you have declared that. The global would be throughout the project, and I would say across the project as well in runtime. So you can use this global variable pointing to different projects as well in runtime. So the project variables are basically project variables where we use these variables as a to declare static default values or credential part. So it comes with special feature like we can hide the values that I showed you yesterday, right? And apart from this, there is, there are few variables which has defined by JitterBit. We call them predefined variables. What is the use of this variable owned by JitterBit, I would say for now. So what is the use of these variables? So let's say you are dealing with one of the endpoints, let's say in database, right? For database ODBC drivers, let's say you have pushed 3 records to database and you want to capture its response, whether it got successfully run or committed or not, right? So in that stage, we can utilize these predefined variables, which is already present with a studio part defined by JitterBit. So are we good on this variable part? So we will take it practically here as well. Okay. So before we go, so the representation is simple. For example, let's say I would be declaring this variable as an temp equal to 10. The definition together. Semicolon is compulsory after every line in the script. So the global variable we represent as an dollar $temp, right? So here also we are defining value. So similarly, project variables would be uh, based upon $temp equal to 10, but here there is a twist that it gets converted once you declare your project variables inside configuration. They will get converted into bold italic. So you will easily understand the difference between global variable and project variable. Let's come here. I would declare one temp variable equal to, let's say my value is 10. I put semicolon, and so here is the status that script status that you would see. Let's say I don't put this semicolon here, and I directly declare $temp equal to 10, right? So you would see the missing operator between two operands, 10 and temp. So it says between 10 and temp, you are missing an operator called semicolon. So once you put that semicolon, it will disappear. So this is a slight difference between these two. So now let's see the test here. What is this test? So basically, let's say you have designed one a script where you have n number of lines, and you want to test it or preview it, right? Before even you run entire operation. So this test will help you in that process, right? So let's say you are seeing it only one variable here, right, as in temp. So in this data element parameter, it will only show you the global variables, not the temporary variables. So let's say if I comment this section, comment is similar to any other languages. So let's say I commented it, so it got disappear from here. So you would only see this line. So if I, so here is a button to run this process. So you would see the value as in 10 for this first line only, not the second line. So let's say I uncomment this portion and run it. So you would see the variable name and its value. I can reset all the values from here, whatever this data element portion holds, and I can rerun it. So it would be again different value. So this is basic difference between these two. So let's say this temp variable would be in a scope out of this script as well, but not this temp, right? So now we will see how this project variable will look like. I'll make it a test and I'll assign it a value as in 10. So $test. If I define it here, so you would see the clear difference between these two, right? This is global variable and this is project variable, and we can assign value here as well. You don't have to define default value. Let's say I want to make sure this should be temp 10. So you would see global variable as well as project variables here. So this is basic difference between these three variables. So let's try to access these variables outside the block. I'll call it local temp, global temp. So all right. So we have defined it here. So let's say let's drag this script over this area. So this is one way to create the script. Now I would like to have one more script which would print these value or log these values. So I would be right clicking on it, insert after this script. So it will create one more skeleton for script. I would be double clicking on it. We will try to create this way now. Create new JitterBit script. So it would be completely for logging, right? So I would say write to operation log that we have seen yesterday, and I'll make it as an dollar global temp. Though I did not represent it that way, the script is not saved. So there is a, so you can switch between multiple script, like clicking it here and moving to the particular script. Dollar global temp. So I would give some sort of name here just to identify my global temp variable. So I put it in a double quotes and concatenate these two things with plus symbol. I'll put this semicolon, next write to operation log, which would be on new line again. Put it as an project test, right? And dollar. So you would see these two variables are automatically populating, but if you look for next one, which is local temp, right? And if I do if I just copy that same variable here, local temp, paste it here, so it will error out saying that local variable local temp hasn't been initialized. So the reason was it was just limited to this sample script, not outside of this script, right? So if let's say you have fetched some sort of HTTP response and you just want to process it locally and store it globally, then you can use this local variables. So within that script only, right? So even if I forcefully try to run it, so it gives you a syntax error saying that this logging script has syntax error. Now let's say I'll just comment this section out, and so you see this down arrow button, you can click here and run operation. So it will ask you, do you want to deploy all the components which are dependent upon this operation, right? So it is deploying every component. If you see, if I try to run the operation, so I don't want to deploy this way. What I'll do, I'll just deploy everything which is under script now. It got deployed. Now let's come here and try to run it. So this time you would only see the script OP, which is this operation only, not the script or project variable basically. So this sample script already have this project variable. So all the dependent component on script will get deployed together while we deploy the script itself. Now it is the time to deploy only operation. So let's say now I have deployed operation. Even if you forget to deploy anything, it will give you warning here saying that do you want to deploy all the components, all the dependent components. So let's say I have run it. So here you can double click just to see the logs. So you would see global temp and project test end. So this way, I think you can utilize the global variables and local variables and test variables or project variables. So we would see more about scripting now. I mean, how this works basically. Let's say I have an array. I'll define this as an array, right? So this local variable, local temp as an array. So once you type an array, you can just select and press enter just to get that array as an component here. So talking about more on the scripting part, you will get everything here. So let's say we opened an array, right? Let's type an array here. So you see this array. So if you don't know anything about the particular function or dictionary type, so you can click here, the question mark, just to see its definition, how this works. I mean, creates an empty array collection. Arrays don't have initialized before, but this method can be used to explicit or reset an array already existing array. So this way you can initialize the array, and simply how we will going to extract the array element that we were going to see it here, right? I'll just remove these two variables from here. Let's say I have defined my array local temp equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, right? What was that? Oh, the comma. I have initialized my array with 4 values. Now I would like to check the length of my array. So I have a length function here, and I will be passing that local temp variable here and semicolon. So now coming to test, I'll just reset. This was the previous value basically. If I try to test it, so it shows me the 4 length. So it has number of elements as in 4, right? So the total length for this array would be 4. And let's say I hold this value inside one of the variable called array length, and I'll just try to re-execute it. So this is an array length again. So what I want to do, I just want to traverse in this array just to get all the elements fetched and store it in a one of the global variable, so I can print it in a different script, right? So let's go here. So I'll define while loop here, because there is no for loop here, but while can do all for work.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides Salesforce online training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
So let's say once you take that variable, you have two things here. One is condition, second is expression. So condition and expression, how does this two works together? So you can hover here just to see the functionality as well. Executes expression while condition is true. You can use the element $scripting while max iteration. So if you remember, I talked about JitterbIt's predefined variables, right? So this is one of the predefined variable $JitterbIt scripting while max iteration. So they have defined one predefined variable where you can initialize this variable saying that don't put my while loop into infinite. So even if my condition doesn't get satisfied, uh, throw me out after 5 iterations, let's say. So that is the purpose of that predefined variables. How to declare that? So you see it here in the example, jitterbit dot scripting dot while max iteration equal to 2000. Let's say if this condition doesn't get satisfied even after looping it 2000 times, so it will automatically throw it out of this loop saying that max iteration has been completed. We will see that. So here are two things here. First is condition, second thing is expression. So I'll just remove this both the things, prepare my while loop here. So I'll come to this place where I would be defining my condition. So I would be require one iteration variable. I would define it as an I equal to 0, and I would be less than array length, right? So this is a basic simple condition that everybody can understand. So my array length would be 4 here, and my iteration variable is I, right? So now I have to provide the second part, which is expression part. So expression part can be of n number of lines. So here, what I'll do, I'll pull up the first element from array. Let's say local temp of I, and here I would be defining one global variable, and I would call that variable as a global temp, right? Let's say we will pull this variable this way, and once after this loop gets over, we will try to print it. So we also require to have iteration plus plus incrementation for this I, right? Every time. So you can define it as an I plus plus here. Now let's come to this test part. I'll reset everything here and I'll run. So it has given you the total of these elements, because I'm gonna add these elements to it. So let's say I'll concatenate it, global temp plus. So just to concatenate here, we can use plus, and I'll put it here as an pipe separator, right, between these elements. So let's try to run it. So you would see, okay, the previous reset hasn't been done. That's the reason it shows the 6 as an first element here. So let's run it. So you would see 0, 1, 2, 3. I think we have placed this in the wrong place. That's the reason first one is also showing as a pipe separator. So this way you can pull up the array values out of it, and you can utilize it as a variable. So let's try to run it. All right, so your global temp would be this. We do not have any project test variable value defined here because we removed it. So that's the reason. So let's say when we jump to scripting part is basically, let's say you don't have any provision reading your data in transformation. That's when we move to scripting part, and we try to get the functionality out of it, right? So this is a simple script that we have seen here. Now now let's check this, what is project items, right? Functions we will come maybe today, tomorrow, how much we can cover, right? So there are n number of functions. We might not be using all of them every time, but when we encounter with it, we should know how does it works. So we will see that part. The project items. So let's say what are these components basically? If I click on any of the item, source or target, so this is database item. Let's say you have configured your database already, it will show here, and from here you can pull that into your script as well. But I always prefer pulling it from here rather than pulling it from this project item variable or section, right? So let's say this is a script, right? I would like to pull it over here. If I double click on it, so it generates some sort of tagging. It comes with tags, right? But if you see it here, I do not have any use of such tags. Let's say how we can utilize these tags properly is like, I'll be defining a run script. So calling one script from other, there is a function called run script. So it will populate all your available functions which you have defined here, or available script you have defined already here, right? So simply, if you don't want to do that, so let's remove this part and click here and double click. So it's an additional work we have to do, right? When we deal with this project item. I am not sure why they have given it, but it is there. So that's the reason I wanted to tell you. So simply this tagging would be referencing to my script slash logging. So this is script slash logging, and tags are nothing but these are predefined, which represents your this linking of two scripts together. So let's say I removed it from here, right? How did I remove it? I'll just do Control Z, reset. You can right click here, remove from graph. So even though I removed that, but I have called my run script from here. So let's try to run it. So you got your values here, right? Even though we called script within script, we would get operation on parent, operation logging on parent operation itself. And if you ask how many, can't we see the script log, that script logging here itself? I would say no, right? You would see the logging in parent only. You understood the difference, right? Even though we call next script from operation script, so all the logging would be happen in this script only, not in other. That other one won't get showed here. All right. So let's say individual logging that we have seen, like right clicking on it and click opening the operation, it would show all the operation, right? But let's say you have 10 operations here, and you wanna see all of their logging at once. So you can right click on operations, operation log, and it will show all the operation logs. How it will be done, we will see that later. Let's say now this is the script operation type we have seen. Now we will see the transformation type. So here call it as a transform OP, right? It has created skeleton as an source, target, and transformation, basically, right? So there are similarly, like script, there are two ways we can define our source and targets as well, by double clicking it here and creating new source, or defining it here itself. Right click it, new source. So now if you come to source part, there are these many source you can define, right? FTP site, which is purely SFTP or FTP related details you can put. This is file share. File share would be network file share, I would say. NFS. HTTP is HTTP configuration that you can do. It also covers HTTPS as well. The temporary storage is something which gets created on agent machine. Let's say in our case, it is a production cloud agent. So this temporary storage would be created on this cloud agent temporary storage available. Local file is something which is your desktop, basically. Global variable, we would see the functionality of it, how this global variable is different than this one, this global variable, right? We would see that. So this the next one is database, and next one is LDAP. So similarly, we would see one of the types as an let's say I'll click on global variable here, because I cannot read anything from local machine, as I do not have anything on local, right? So though my studio is on local, but my server is on cloud. So even if I configure local file, I cannot run anything on local, right? So I click on global. So it asks about what would be the name of your global variable. I will call it global temp. So this is just an specification name, not the actual variable name. So actual variable name you can define here. I'll call it as an GL variable, right? So GL variable, I'll take it capital and I'll drag this over here, right? So my source configuration is done now. Now coming back to target one, click here. Again, I would like to define it as a global variable, right? So I'll call it as an global temp target. I'll rename this one as an source. So the name that you are defining here, it is just for the purpose of showing it here, but the actual variable that works is this one, right? If I come to here, this one, I'll define it as an GL variable target, right? I'll save it, close this one, close this one as well, reset your layout and drag it this variable. Now that we have configured source and target, but how are you going to assign the value to this variable? So let's say we would assign a simple value to it by inside your script only. I don't want to depend upon any external system as of now. So I would be defining it in a script. So I'll take a script here, reset my layout again, and let's say we will create new script for the moment. I'll call it init variable, right? So what was my init variable name? The source variable name, GL variable, right? So call it dollar and paste this variable here, right? And initialize it with some value. Let's say we would create one simple CSV where we can assign that CSV to this global variable and we will try to transform it, right? I think we had a CSV created yesterday as a test. Why this program is not taking the notepad? All right, we'll open it here only. All right, create one. Let's say I'll call it ID emp not space state. We will take three values here. ID would be 1, employee name is, let's say, Datta, and state is MH. Second would be let's say AS, and state is TN only, right? I'll save it, not under schemas, but here. Okay, I'll call it sample CSV not CSV, right? Save it. I'm just keeping it for reference, but we have to define it here only. So I pasted it everything, right? So in single quotes, I have assigned some sort of value to this variable. If you want it to be aligned, you can keep it this way as well, or the second way would be like taking this double quotes here and pasting it here. This way also you can define your variables just to have a proper look and feel. So now we have initialized the variable. Before even we sending it to transformation, I would like to print it. Pre-operation running, I would like to see my variable, how this data looks like, right? Because very soon we are going to transform it. So this is the initialization script and printing script is being done. Now let's drag this script over your source. Now you have three parts ready. script part, source part, and target part, but your transformation is not yet ready, right? So let's try to create transformation. So you'd see, if unless you configure everything, this red cross mark won't go away, right? So let's try to create one transformation. Right click on it. Now it will ask you about source and target, right? So this is an very interesting part. What I'm going to do here, transform my CSV, right? We will take a plain CSV here. Let's say click your source type. So when you have source, it will ask you about what kind of data are you trying to transform. So we would be telling our transformation that I would be passing the text only. So the CSV comes under text. If it is XML, XML. If it is JSON, EDI, they have a separate functions. Options here. So I would choose text. For target as well, I would choose text only for now. Let's create, hit next button. So it will ask you to text document definition. Can you give the definition that you are looking for? What kind of document are you trying to transform? You have to provide a schema to us. So let's say we do not have already created schema here. So it would only ask you to create new one. So when you choose text format, it would completely comes under new file format as in text. So I'll be calling it as CSV format, right? And now the second thing comes into picture is like, what kind of document type is it? Is it simple document or complex text document? So as of now, we are just trying to parse simple CSV, not the complex CSV, right? The hierarchical CSV. So we would be defining here as an simple text document and character delimited. So we don't have any fixed width document that comes under EDI processing and all, but we have only character delimited. The default character delimiter is comma only, right? So do you have any file example where you wanna create this document with? Yes, we have a file example here, right? This one. So I'll just pull that file here. Sample flat file with column names, right? And here is the delimiter, right? So I'll choose that file, sample CSV. Click it. So it has the text has appeared here, whatever the file contains. So based on that, it has created your CSV, right? So in this CSV, you have field name, employee name, state name. What are the types? Integer, string, string. Do you have any default value defined? No. What is the format? Format is none. And again, are you going to apply any validation here? So let's say if you want to apply validation, you can apply multiple types of validation that we will see later, right? As of now, we would going to parse only plain or text. So if you want to review this structure, it would look like this in the transformation: employee ID, employee state, right? So now that we configured our source with CSV format, click next. So once you click next, it will go to this target. In the target as well, do you want the same schema to be applied? If yes, then you hit the finish button. Otherwise, you can create new schema from here always. So I want to have a same schema applied here as well. I'll click next. So now once you click finish, you would see this transformation piece. But once you see this page, all is hidden. I mean the transformation and all. So you see this plus sign here. You can expand your schema this way. Expand and collapse, right? These two terms. Similarly for target. So now once we have done, so let's say you want to see particular mapping as in zoom in. So you can click on this plus sign just to see it in a proper way, right? Plus minus symbols are there. Let's say you have hundreds of mapping at this end, so you would get confused. Where are my actual mappings and all? So let's see. We would drag it one by one, right? So there is one way you can drag it one by one, or let's say I have right click on this target and clear the mappings under this folder. Or if your source field names and target fields name are matching, you can use the auto mapping feature as well here. So you see this auto map, right? If you click on it, it will auto map everything. So now let's come to the next part. Now your transformation is ready. We are purely transforming it. We are not doing anything, any changes to it. Now we have everything ready. Let's try to save it by doing Control S. So now your transformation operation is valid and it is ready to deploy and run, right? So let's say okay, even if we try transform everything into this variable, we haven't logged anything. We will try to log it, right? Right click it, insert after this script, double click on it, create script. Or instead of creating script, let's utilize the existing one, the logging one. Logging one has these two variables defined here. I'll just rename it to the actual variable, right? I'll come to my operation. I'll copy this variable name and logging taken, double click on it, paste, put dollar. I would put the same variable name here in the printing as well for my reference. Reset your layout. So you would see everything here now, right? You might not be seeing the logging word fully because of the layout issue maybe. Once I might close it and open it, you might see it right here. So everything is visible now. Let's try to run it, deploy everything. All right. So it did run, and this is my pre-script login. Sorry, no, this is my pre-script login. So you would be seeing some sort of difference here: pre-transformation script and post-transformation script. You can segregate this way, right? So you have id temp here also. Oh, so you see the slight difference here, as the global variable target has passed this variable as an 0. The reason of passing it was like it was also reading the header part, right? It was reading this header part, but the header, the variable that we defined it is in integer. Either you can remove its header part from this section, or second way I'll tell you. Let's remove it. All right. I think it hasn't been initialized properly, though it's an 0, 2 here. It always shows 0. Let me try to transform the values once. The CSV has everything, right? So now you see one of two. This way you can load your data, load sample source data. Once you click it, you just browse your file, double click on it, open it. So on the source end, you would see both the data things. Now you want to load it onto target side as well. So here is a test transformation, right? Once I do test transformation, I can see one data and MH. If I go for next value, you would see 2 AS and TN. So in the transformation, I can see both the values are printing fine only. But when it comes to here, let's try to deploy it one more time. So this way you can cross verify whether your data is getting passed to target in the right manner or not. Okay, it's running still. Done. Check the latest one. Okay, it still has some issue parsing the second element. I'm not sure whether it is because of the indentation or something. Oh, could be the reason, because it usually parse it, but not sure what is this case. All right, so this way I have put /n now, but in our real-time scenario this won't be the case, as we don't give flat file here, right? So it has a script indentation issue or something. Let's try to refresh our logs and get it. I think this time it worked, right? So you see both the outputs properly. What I'll do, for printing purpose, I'll print everything in the new line. So if when I put /n, everything after this would be in the new line. All right, this worked this time, right? So you would see both the inputs properly. I mean, every time it won't be the case, right? We would be transforming CSV to CSV only. So we would be transforming it to JSON or XML or any other format as well, right? So that time, let's say, uh, you would be uploading here a JSON file or a XML file. So that time we need to have a separate target variable just to hold this result set, right? Similarly, you can perform everything by double clicking on it ID here itself, right? So let's say you have a parsing issue, right? You want only specific IDs to be parsed to target end, not all the IDs. That time you can apply your logic here. My target would be of a different type. It could be FTP as well as HTTP as well as temporary storage, could be local storage as well. Just, I mean, I do not have local file storage access, right? I cannot write it on my local system as I'm using cloud agent. That's the reason I chosen temporary global target. Okay, so if we are using cloud agents, we don't have to do anything. But if you are using private agents, I think in that scenario, I mean, I have not encountered into that situation where we have to manually clear it. But let's say within 30 days of span, you had reached to the point where you need to clean your space, then I think either you can raise a support case ticket, or second thing would be, I think there is a documentation around it just to clear the temporary storages as well. I'll see if I have document, but mostly the many companies raise the ticket, support ticket, and they help us out in that process. I mean, it is an general setting that we do. It could be for totally for agent to agent. Let's say I have a private agent, then in the configuration file I can mention something called let log last for next 3 days only, and uh, let it purge once after 3 days over. So that configuration setting we can do, I think, but that is totally depend on agent. But for cloud agents, it is fixed. The logging is fixed. So what JitterBit is logging here? I mean, in terms of, if let's say if I skip these two parts, so what are the other things that JitterBit might be logging? You want to understand that, right? Okay. So from that perspective, I think they have a process in place. I would say, I mean, I have not seen that logging where they do that logging basically. But let's say they have a management API just to extract that if you want that logging to be extracted. So that's an altogether a separate topic, but you won't see that logging here. Let's try to find out a debug log from here. So if I click on this operation, so this was the latest one, right? So you would see activity logs, the messages that we have printed, right? But if you come to this debug files mode, I can download. But what they have done basically is downloading of agent log is disabled for public agent. So this was the main issue with cloud agents. If you wanna have a proper logging, so and debugging mode enabled, so you have to enable it from private agent. Let's say if something went wrong with the particular operation, so it will show the proper error here itself in this message section only, that let's say this particular operation got failed with so and so reason. Here itself in the message section itself it will show. And for debug log, if you want to download, I mean these debug logs are also hard to understand. I mean we have to open each and every file just to see one message together. Instead of that, the logging can be here. It will properly show you the source did not pick the data, or transformation got failed with so and so reason, or target is not available to receive the data, something like that. So we will see that logging, how JitterBit generates and give you. So because of the fact JitterBit is modular structure, when I say modular, let's say you want to pick the data from one of the FTP and push it to Salesforce. So even practically you can achieve that everything in the same one transformation itself. But as a let's say you want to store that fetch data onto your temporary storage, and from temporary storage you want to read that data and push it to Salesforce, right? So let's say in this process you need two separate operations. One is fetching data from SFTP and storing it onto temporary storage, and the second process would be of operation type, like reading that temporary storage and transforming data to Salesforce. So practically it is two steps. We cannot achieve that thing in single operation. So that is the reason I would say JitterBit modular structure, and you can go to granular level operation based only. So now we have seen the plain text transformation basically here. Now we would see the different types. I have a sample JSON here that we can transform. We'll try to transform it. ID, type, name, the image details. So I would remove this section. We would take a CSV to JSON transformation basically here. The thumbnail as of now no required. But I'll take these parameters as an. All right, this is my JSON object, simple JSON object. Width, height, and ID. This is state I would define, so that we have 3 elements already in our CSV, right? Sample CSV. We would add 2 more. Let's say this would be, let's say 5.2 and URL. Let's say my URL would be http://www.peakoftheday.com, comma, and the next thing would be height is something, let's say 6.1, and I'll copy this data. We will try to create a new operation of type transformation only. So how we can utilize particular component is, let's say I want to reutilize this temp storage. I can reutilize this one right here without creating a copy. and I would use this target as well in the new operation. So I'll call it CSV2 JSON transform. Right. So now I will define one script type. This time I would be taking a different script, init variable CSV. So I have pasted it as an dollar dollar GL variable equal to, this is my first line, and in the next line I will be putting the next input that we have. So this is my input. I'll drag it here, and now we are going to create a new transformation again. We will print the same thing with logging, right? So now we have reused how many components here? 1, 2, 3 in that these two different operation. Now let's try to create a transformation which would be of type CSV to JSON. Let's say I choose first as in text, second as in JSON. Create next. So we have already defined our schema here with the CSV format. Let's try to create new because I don't want to disturb the previous existing one. Even though we create new 2 elements here, it doesn't matter. Let's say, oh, it got pulled from file. So I think we cannot modify. Oh, we can modify it. URL. The next component I can put is an height. So my height is in double. So I would define it that as in double. Okay, do next. So here it is asking about the target thing. Do you have any schemas already defined? If you have already defined schema, it will show in this panel. Otherwise, you have to pull a sample JSON. Out of that, you can create your own schema, right? So I'll pull my sample JSON structure. So do you have a JSON structure locally or do you have it remotely? And so let's say I have it locally saved. Does it enter this one? No. Where is that? Okay, it's under schemas only, not with dot extension. That's the reason. I'll choose this one, sample JSON. And once you choose your file, you need to generate your XSD. So if you remember yesterday, I told you everything, the all schema, even though it is JSON schema, that will get ultimately converted into XML. I mean XSD, right? So if I hit this generate button, it will generate the schema at this location. If you want to see this location, basically you can click open folder and you would see your actual schema here in this XML format. Though it is JSON, it got converted into XML. All complex types, minimum occurrences of that particular element, what are the fixed, whether is it object or what, array. So it will show you everything. So once you are done with this process, let's say finish. So now though as it is an JSON object, you would see it as a flat structure only, similar to, but the name itself suggests it is an object, right? So I'll try to auto map it. The similar fields will get mapped. So employee and name are different. So I'll map it manually now. Now you have seen the difference, right? All similar fields get automatically mapped, but not the name and ID, employee and name. So I've dragged it, save it, and close it. So now we have created transformation. I'll drag it over here, save it, reset it, and let's try to load. So you would see your data has printed in this manner, right? So let's say you have only one object. That was the reason it printed for only one data, even though we are passing two records here. It didn't pick up the next one, right? Or it might have overwritten the first one. Sorry, I'll just refresh it. So it did not pick the second one because we have defined only as an single object, not an array of object, right? So let's try to define it as an array. Reason could be it could have picked up the first value and it got there wasn't scope for second one, could be the reason, but I'll just try to load it in the transformation itself just to see it more. So you see only first value and it got it did not wait for the second one. That's the reason. It picked up first one and it directly goes for the next process. It did not stay in between. That's the reason. And if we try to forcefully load it, the second record itself, it don't show it on the target end. So let's take this as a source. So I don't want the same schema to be created for the next record. So I'd be taking it as a next one and create one manually. Let's say, all right, I'll create it as in data. So my second target would be again a flat file I have chosen, but this time what I would be doing, I would be combining these elements all together and pushing it on my source here. So let's say plus plus plus, right? So this way I have pulled everything together in a single variable. Or maybe let's say you can have your schema created here as an inside transformation, this JSON as well. So if I copy this one, put it here. So that's the reason I told you it works in a little different way. You need customization some sort if you want to do it this way. So this way you can define the dynamics value, and from here itself you can do write file just to send it to your target system, splitting every record and creating separate file, let's say based upon employee ID, right? So you can put that into there. So this way it works. All right, thanks everyone.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides Salesforce online training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.